So today we are doing human nervous system. Human nervous system is divided into two. We have impulse conduction as well as the structure of the brain, functions in brain. That's what we'll be doing today. And I hope you already have submitted your assignments. Okay guys, unit 1, human nervous system. I was trying to open a different slide, but it seems to have a problem with it. So PYC1501 is all about human nervous system. I'm sure you have this on your My Unit. Unit 1, learning objective. Let's start with learning objectives. Learning objectives means as soon as you're done studying this unit 1, you have to achieve this learning session. Two important parts of nervous system, and they have understand how the components of nervous system fit to of impulse conduction and explain the interconnection of neurons in the brain. So before you even understand the concept, the word psychology, the word psychology goes with human mind. Remember, psychology is the study of what? Study of mind. It's a study of mind. Study of mind in what way? Psychologically and physically. So this is a physical aspect of the human nervous system. What happens when you communicate? What happens when you reason? That is human nervous system. That's the first part. So let's repeat the objectives. Understand the two important parts of nervous system and their function. Understand how the components of nervous system fit together. Understand the process of impulse conduction. So I will explain in detail what we mean by impulse conduction. Explain the interconnection of neurons in the brain. So let's start here. So this is a detailed chapter. I need your concentration. Introduction 1.1. Introduction. They say human nervous system is an important aspect of human functions and is responsible for all human behavior. Human nervous system is an important aspect of human functioning and it is responsible for all behavior, all forms of behavior. By behavior, when you talk, it's part of behaving. When you react, it's part of behaving. As I'm talking to you right now, you can listen with your ears. You are looking at the slides, meaning that is human function. Coordinated by what? Controlled by what? Human nervous system. In short, without human nervous system, meaning you're dead. You need human nervous system in order for you to relate. Whether you're disabled, human nervous system functions. Whether we can't hear functions. Once your human nervous system dies, meaning you can't live. The human nervous system is an important aspect of human functions and is responsible for all forms of human behavior. Then, comparative studies of physiological functions in the nervous system of different animals lend insight to their behavior and their mental processes, make it easy for us to understand human brain and behavior. So this is a study done on animals to access how does human behavior works. This learning session outlines different aspects of human nervous system and they coordinate together to produce human behavior. This session will cover the structure of neurons, the process of impulse conduction, as well as the structure of human nervous system. So with your highlighter, you can highlight. In short, this chapter is divided into three. Like I said, this session covers the structure. You can highlight the structure of neurons, highlight the process of impulse conduction on your notes, as well as the structure of human nervous system. So it's divided into three parts. Human nervous system structure and function. So you cannot go on with this chapter without touching on the structure and functions. Human nervous system, the structure and functions. What structures in your brain that coordinate human nervous system, and what functions, what important structures of your brain. They say to the mammalian nervous system is a complex biological organ which enables many animals, including humans, to function in a coordinated fashion. The original design of this system is presented across many animals through evolution. That's adaptive. Maybe you're asking yourself, why animals? Because you're talking about psychology. Why not human? Human. Why are they keep on repeating animals? I mean animals. Like they said in the beginning, human nervous system is an important aspect of human function, and this is responsible for all human behaviors. Not only humans behave, also animals do behave. So they behave will find both humans, both in animals. Yes, they keep on saying animals. And when you do studies, when you mostly do certain research, they will say to you, it's unethical to use certain research to human. Rather do them, apply them using animals. So yes, they say animals, animals, animals. Like medical practitioners, for them to study how to operate a person, they don't use a live person. Instead, they use what? You'll find them using a rat, a mouse, a frog. Yes, they will keep on saying animals, so that you'll understand these aspects. How are they getting these aspects? So let's continue. Thus, adaptive, physiological, and behavioral functions show similar across many animal species. The human nervous system is divided into peripheral nervous system as well as central nervous system. So let's keep this so that won't confuse you. Yes. The human nervous system, they say, is divided into what? Peripheral nervous system and central nervous system that interact with one another. The peripheral nervous system controls peripheral nervous system. There's peripheral nervous system controls what? Somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. So even if you study, instead of writing your notes into detail, follow this structure. It summarizes most of the things. You follow this structure, we call it a tree structure. Some they say family tree structure. Peripheral nervous system. The question is, what is peripheral nervous system? Remember, we are studying the structures and the function. Peripheral nervous system is where in your body you can't see it with the naked eye. You need a microscope to see it. It controls the functions. How does it? What is peripheral nervous system? Then you ask yourself, what is peripheral nervous system? The peripheral nervous system carries the signals necessary for the body to survive. Peripheral nervous system carries the signals for the body, and some of the signals are related to voluntary actions. And the peripheral nervous system is divided into somatic and autonomic nervous system. Let's repeat it. The peripheral nervous system carries the signals necessary for the body to survive. What do they mean by signals? As I'm talking to you right now, you can, like I've said, you are able to hear my voice through your eardrums. You can see I'm moving the mouse. You can see different colors: purple, red, black, white. That's the process. They say the peripheral nervous system carries signals. So those are the signals, meaning I'm sending signals. As I'm talking, probably your phone will ring. Someone calls you. How do you relate? You relate through the signals. We use the signals to communicate, to make sense of information. The peripheral carries signals necessary for the body to survive. Some of the signals are related to voluntary actions. So by voluntary action, I'll say to you, something that is voluntary. There's voluntary and involuntary. Voluntary, I say to you, open your study materials. You open your study materials. I say to you, please enlarge, like Osinda was saying to me, please enlarge your screen. Automatically, I enlarge my screen, meaning I'm doing it voluntary. Then the involuntary action. Involuntary action are those that you can't control. Heartbeat, you can't control your heartbeat. You can't control sweating. You can't control your breathing, meaning they're involuntary. However, peripheral, they say, are related to voluntary action. The peripheral action System is divided into somatic and autonomic nervous system. So you'll understand what do they mean by signals and voluntary action through somatic as well as autonomic nervous system. So let's start with somatic nervous system. The word comes from soma, the somatic nervous system. The somatic, which is this, meaning is peripheral nervous system. Under peripheral, we have somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. So let's go through somatic nervous system. The somatic nervous system is associated with conscious and voluntary activities. Conscious and voluntary activities, not unconscious. So you can highlight. Remember, you're writing multiple choice questions. This you can trick you in this key concept. You should know that somatic, voluntary action, and conscious. Multiple choice questions comes and say to you, somatic nervous system is associated with unconscious and involuntary. You see the difference. So you need to know the keys. The answer I say to you, you bring your highlights, highlight these key concepts. So that this is how we create multiple choice questions. The somatic nervous system is associated with conscious, meaning you are aware, and voluntary action, not involuntary. It is involved in a relay of sensory and motor information to form the central nervous system. It is involved in a relay, sensory and motor information. Therefore, it consists of motor and sensory neuron. We're still going to discuss what you mean by sensory and motor neuron. The motor neuron that carries information from CNS. CNS stands for what? Central nervous system to the muscles. The motor neuron that carries information from central nervous system to the muscles, also called efferent neuron. Efferent means moving away from. The sensory neuron that carries sensory information to the central nervous system. So let me explain this to make things much simpler. As you are part of the class, someone comes and touches you. We are studying, or let's say your phone rings. When your phone rings, do we use sensory neuron or motor neuron? That's a question. As I'm talking to you right now, how do you receive information? Do you receive information through sensory neuron or motor neuron? Listen, you say sensory neuron that carry sensory information to the nervous system. So sensory neuron is a receiving part of information. Sensory comes from what? Senses. We use senses to detect information. When I touch you, you hear my touch, which is your senses. When I talk to you, you can hear that I'm talking to you. To what? You eat. Your taste buds are your senses. Here, they say we have 5 senses. 5 senses, we have smell, what, taste, a sense for touch, hearing, and also seeing, visual. It comes from sense. So the word comes from sense, the sensory neuron, to detect information. When I touch you, I talk to you right now, it's through sensory neuron. They say sensory neuron that carry the sensory information. Sensory information, what you hear right now, is through senses. The sensory neuron that carry sensory information to the central nervous system. It carries information where? To the central nervous system. Are also called afferent neurons, moving towards. Then, as soon as the information is carried to your central nervous system, remember central nervous system, that's where you will find your what? Brains and functions. It goes straight to your. You are receiving my voice right now. Where do you receive my voice? In your eardrums. Eardrums, where does the information goes? The information goes from the brain. It needs to be interpreted. The information needs to make sense. Then I tell you, open your study guide. How do you open your study guide? You open your study guide using your hands. Whether you open it through the laptop or we have a hard copy. It starts from where? Sensory. The sensory neuron that carry sensory information to the central nervous system. In your case, we can just highlight and say carries information to the brain. It's also called afferent neuron. Then there's motor. As soon as the information goes straight to the brain, how does it go through the spinal cord in order for you to act? Motor. the motor neuron that carries information from the central nervous system. Remember, sensory carries information to the central nervous system brain. Then motor neuron takes that information from the brain. The motor neuron that carry information from the central nervous system to the muscles, meaning you act from the muscles, then you act. I told you, I am talking to you right now. You receive information through your eardrums. Eardrums, the information goes to the brain. It is interpreted. I tell you to do something, or there's a knock on the door. While I'm presenting, there's a knock on the door. How does it go to? How did I hear that there's a knock on the door? Through my eardrums, I interpret. Oh, there's a knock on the door. Then I stand up to open the door. Standing up and opening the door, that is through. Hearing the noise is through sensory neuron. Hope you understand. This is from externally. Through senses, it goes straight to the brain, central nervous system. From the brain, the motor neuron takes the information from the central nervous system to the muscle. Muscle meaning you act. That hence they say voluntary. You hear something and you do something voluntary. Okay, let's proceed. Each neuron is basically a two-way process containing thousands of efferent and afferent neurons. So in short, your body contains billions of neurons. Neurons are more like wires in your body. Look at the street pole. The street pole has wires connected to each other. From one process to the next, same applies to our body. We have neurons. Neurons are wire-like. They are connected together. You say each nerve is basically a two-way process containing thousands of neurons, whether it's afferent neurons. I hope I'm clear. I'll give you time to ask questions. They say autonomic nervous system. The autonomic controls involuntary. You see that the system controls the involuntary functions of our internal organs and glands. Here is conscious information and voluntary information, that is somatic. Whereas autonomic nervous system, they say, controls involuntary action. So I did make the difference between the two. I said involuntary is something that you do yourself, something that you can control. However, involuntary, I think that you cannot basically control. It uses reflexes. What do they mean? The autonomic nervous system controls involuntary function of internal organs. Internal organs, what comes to your mind when you hear the word internal organs are your lungs. Lungs, your internal organs. You can't control your breathing rate. Yes, you can control it, but maybe perhaps by however, it's involuntary. When the action happens, when you are something, you experience a shock. You don't tell your lungs to pump in and out. You don't tell your heart to pump. It happens automatically. It happens automatically. That is involuntary function. Okay, let me explain it broader so that you understand much better. It is divided into three. It is divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic. So psychologists have terms, interesting terms. It is divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic division. What do you mean by sympathetic? The sympathetic nervous system, on one hand, is involved in preparing the body for stress-related activity. They say it prepares the body from stress-related activities. Then they give you an example. They say, for example, when a person encounters any fear-inducing stimuli, like a snake, when a person experiencing, you're walking on the street, suddenly you see a snake. Most of us are scared of snakes. You're walking the street, suddenly you see a snake. Then your body will react. You see a snake, you know that the snake is dangerous. Your body will react. Start from the mind, you see a snake, you know that the snake is danger. Meaning in your mind it says danger, danger. So what happens in your body? They say sympathetic division generally energizes many muscles. Many muscles. Heart rate goes what? goes high. Your glands, remember your glands, it goes with hormones. It secretes what? Adrenaline. Causes the release of hormones that led to individuals to negotiate the fear stimuli with fight or flight. When they say negotiate, they don't mean negotiating with the snake. You can't with the snake. You can't negotiate with a lion or even a dog. So they mean, in short, negotiating interpretation of the fear. You're walking on the street, you see a lion. What will happen in your mind? Interpreting meaning, negotiating meaning, should I run? Should I stand still? I watched National Geography, they said that you shouldn't panic. Instead, you should move slowly. When you see a snake, they normally say, perhaps avoid eye contact, move slowly. So that's negotiation. Or you just run away. Sympathetic, you see a snake, sympathetic division generally energizes many muscles. Your heart rate will be high, hence adrenaline will be released. How do you see that the adrenaline will be released? Chances are you start sweating, your veins on your face, they say to individuals to negotiate the fear causing stimuli with fight or flight response. Whether the individual decides to fight the snake or run away from it, either action requires what? Energy. Involuntary functions in the organs. So these actions are involuntary. It happens automatically. When you run, you sweat. It happens automatically. You don't tell your body to sweat. That's what they mean by involuntary. The heart is involuntary. Like now, your heart is beating calmly. It's involuntary. The glands and the muscles are involuntary actions. Autonomic nervous system, like I've said, divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic nervous system is whereby your body reacts to danger. What happens when your body reacts to danger? The organs interact. Heart, then also your lungs. They didn't mention the lungs. So you sweat. Then the parasympathetic reaction. This concept is say para. Para comes from where? You can say paralyzed, parasympathetic nervous system. On the other hand, this is associated with returning the body to a routine day-to-day operation. In other words, the parasympathetic nervous system restores and calms down the physiological responses so as to maintain homeostasis. Let me make it simple for you. It starts here. It starts here. What happens? You see danger. You see a snake. Your body reacts. You sweat. Heart rate is high. Your lungs are pumping because you are in fear. And automatically, then suddenly you manage to run away from danger. What will happen to your body? Your body will start to calm down. Your body will start to calm down. So this is the process of calming down. This is a process of seeing a danger. Your body reacts. Then the parasympathetic is calming yourself down. The parasympathetic nervous system, on the other hand, is associated with returning the body to its routine, day-to-day operation. In other words, the parasympathetic nervous system restores and calms down the physiological response to maintain homeostasis, the state of equilibrium in which biological conditions such as body temperature are maintained at optimal level. The two complementary, they work together functions, operating in a tandem to maintain the body homeostasis. You see the difference? Interesting. Peripheral nervous system with somatic nervous system, which is this. They say voluntary. Autonomic nervous system, involuntary. That is sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous reaction. So before I continue, let me get the questions if you do understand. So there's no use of studying without involving. U. Or let's see. It is 18 of 18. We are 18 in our discussion. So any question, any elaborations regarding what I've just discussed now? So what you'll do, you just raise your hand. It's on top. There's an option where you can raise your hand. Then me and my colleagues, you'll pick up your hand, then you ask a question or elaboration. I want to determine if you do understand. Am I making sense? Remember, this is your class. There are no wrong or right answers. Feel free to participate. I can see Avela, Tumelo, Olumisa, Kabelo, Lindelani, Shibu, Mpone, Del. I can see Zwane, Papama. So feel free, guys, to be part of the lesson. If you don't have a question, just open your mic and tell me that, okay, say you can continue. The session does make sense.
Hey, say, I don't have questions for now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Papama.
I think you can continue. Thank you, sir.
Okay, pleasure.
You can continue, sir.
Enough? Okay, Tumelo. Okay, thanks, guys. Let me continue. Pleasure. Here's my slide. Okay. Okay, thanks for that. Let's move. Got done with what? Peripheral nervous system, somatic nervous system, and autonomic. Now we are moving to the second part. Remember, we said we have peripheral nervous system as well as central nervous system. Now we are moving to central nervous system. The system will work together. Here is central nervous system. They say central nervous system. CNS. The central nervous system is made up of the brain. That's where you find the brain. The central nervous system is made up of the brain, the brainstem, and the spinal cord. It's made up of the brain, the brainstem, as well as the spinal cord. So these are the three key concepts. You can highlight them. Multiple choice question, we must say to you, the central nervous system is made up of, then we put 3 dots. We give you 4 options. We say to you, brain, brainstem, spinal cord, or we play around. It's made up of, you say it's made up of what? The option will be neurons. We also add perhaps lungs. Not to confuse you. So you need to know that central nervous system is made up of the brain. You highlight the brainstem as well as the spinal cord. So those are the key in your central nervous system. This system performs mainly the information synthesizing function. During this process, the brain and the spinal cord let me check something. Now, Miss Silezwane, please close your mic. Now, Miss Silezwane, please close your mic. Thank you. The central nervous system made up of the brain, spinal cord, and brainstem. Highlight that. The system performs mainly the information synthesizing function. During this process, the brain and spinal cord use appropriate motor output. Remember motor output. I said to you, you receive your the information through your senses, sensory. It goes to the brain. From the brain, motor neuron takes over, take the information to where? For you to function. The same motor output, which is based on the type of sensory input. The central nervous system regulates everything from organ function and highlight to purposefully body movement. Let me repeat. The central nervous system regulates from the function. Organ, they are inside. The organs are inside. in the brain also is an organ. High level thought to purposeful body movement. That it is control. That it is the control center of the central nervous system is a control center of the body. And they say central. Central nervous system is the control center of the body. It's referred to central because it is the brain and the spinal cord that are primarily responsible for processing information. Brain and the spinal cord. That's why when you let's assume someone gets into the car accident, and it happens that your spinal cord is affected. What happens when the spinal cord is affected? Certain functions in your body won't work. Certain function of your body will be paralyzed because the spinal cord has been affected. So both the brain and the spinal cord are primarily responsible for processing information. The information is relayed from the spinal cord to the brain. What do they mean by the information is relayed from the brain to the spinal cord? What do they mean? I'm talking to you right now. Your eardrums receive information. The information does not go straight to the brain. You hear me? Someone touches you right now. The information does not go straight to the spinal cord. It starts from where? Sensory. Start from your senses. It goes straight to via your neurons, from your neurons, spinal cord, then to the brain. Clear. Information move from sensory, I touch you, it goes via the nerves, the neurons, to the spinal cord. From the spinal cord, it goes to your brain. Hence, they say the information is relayed from the spinal cord to the brain. They say there's a figure 1.2 below, communicates largely to sending electrical signals through individual nerve system that make up the foundation building blocks. Okay, let's check this. This is your brain and the spinal cord. How do they relate? Your brain and the spinal cord. Let me try to. Okay, it's fine. You receive information from the nerves, whether information is autonomic or somatic nervous system, straight to the brain. The brain will interpret what kind of information. If it's fear, the brain interprets. The spinal cord just acts as a bridge to transport information. But where does the interpretation happen? Whether this is danger, is fun, joy, it happens in the brain. What happens in the brain? They say this is the largest part of the central nervous system. The brain is the largest part of the central nervous system. The brain is the headquarters of the entire nervous system, where activities such as sensation, perception, thinking, awareness, emotion, and planning takes place. Then they will ask you that your sensation, perception, thinking, awareness, emotions, and planning, where does it happen? It happens in the brain, headquarters of the brain. Sensation, the senses, perception, the view, thinking, awareness, emotions. Through the brain. When you're stressed by something, you need to interpretation brain. You can't just be stressed, not having any form of interpretation. You are stressed because you know that if I fail my exam, I won't be able to move to second semester. If I fail PYC1501, it will be difficult for me to register other modules, meaning in your brain. Then emotion. That's why the feeling that if I face this will happen. Awareness, you are aware that for you to write an exam, you need to write the first two assignments. The first two assignments act as an entry for you to write an exam. It's comparison to the first two assignments. It's a process of thinking. All this happens in your brain. I need to attend the class so that information will be much simpler for me. It happens where? In the brain. That's where interpretation happens. We have what? The limbic system. The limbic system is part of the brain consisting of high specialized neuron structure, and that are located on the top of the brainstem. This structure involved in regulating emotions. They involve in hippocampus. So you can open your notes because I can see on my side the words are too small. So it will be much easier if you open my slide and your notes on the side. This structure involved in regulating emotions, and they include hippocampus, amalgama, the thalamus, the insular cortex, cortex, as well as So which structure? The question is now is which structures in your brain regulate fear, anger, hunger, sleep, work cycle, sexual desire, and even memory. So these are the structures. Let's move on to check how they break them down. This one is much clear. We have cerebral cortex, the largest part of the brain, where to find limbic system below. Cerebrum, some they call it a small brain. Then we have the brainstem, located where? In the spinal cord. Some they say pons. Let's check the functions now. The cerebrum is situated at the back of the brain, like the brainstem. What is its function? It coordinates action without the need of any conscious awareness. It coordinates actions without the need of any conscious awareness. So cerebrum is they say it's independent. It coordinates action without the need of conscious awareness. I don't need to touch you. I don't need to shout at you in order for the cerebrum to work. They say it coordinates action without any conscious awareness. So whether conscious or not unconscious, in short. Then you have the cerebrum. The cerebrum, which includes the cerebral cortex. The cerebrum, which includes the cerebral cortex, it is regarded as the most advanced portion of the brain. Inside the cortex, we have what? The gray matter. Neural cell body, we have the gray matter lies outside and the white matter. So let me repeat this. Inside the cerebral cortex, we find what is a gray matter. Inside the brain is gray. Then we have the white matter. Now, let me do this. We have a gray matter as well as the white matter. What is white? What is gray? They say inside the cerebral cortex, the gray matter, neural cell body, which lies outside. That's a gray matter. Then the inside of the brain, which we have the myelin axons, which lies inside. And they are what? They are white. The central hemisphere, your brain is divided into two. It's divided into two. There's left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. The cerebral cortex, left and right hemisphere, two halves. The brain is divided into two halves. This is a half. This is your brain. Then inside is divided into two halves. This is the side. It's another half. Left and right hemisphere. They work together. So they oversee the type of processes that are associated with more awareness and controls voluntary action. What do they control? The voluntary action, such as speaking and planning. They contain our primary sensory areas such as seeing, hearing, feeling, and moving. These two hemispheres are connected to one another by big corpus callosum. Then the question is, these two hemispheres, how do they connect? You have a brain. Inside your brain is divided into two, left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. How do they connect? They are connected through what? Corpus callosum. Corpus callosum connects the two halves. These two halves are connected to one another by a thick bundle of axon called corpus callosum. So this is a corpus callosum. The rest split brain patient offer helpful insight into how the brain works. For example, we now understand that the brain is contralateral. This means that the left side of the brain is responsible for controlling the number of sensory and motor functions of the right hemisphere. What do they mean by the collateral? The right side of the brain controls your left side movement. Imagine a penguin. You see when the penguin walks, say left, right. The movement of the penguin, left, right. The brain, the head goes to the right, the left foot moves. When the brain goes to the left, the right hand side moves. That is collateral. When we walk like penguins. 1, 2, 1, 2. There's a rhythm in our body. If the brain goes to the left and your feet go to the left, chances are you'll fall. So there's a balance. The balance is called collateral. The rest split brain patient offers helpful insight into how the brain works. For example, we now understand that it's contralateral. They say this means that the left side of the brain is responsible for the number of sensory as well as motor functions on the right side of the body, vice versa. So it's left, right. Your body has a rhythm. That's why they mean. Okay, let's move on. So the slide have 18 units. Chances are we won't finish all the 18 pages. So the next week we'll do half. It is now 9 o'clock. Then I have 1 hour to present. If you don't finish, we do half. I wanted to use a different slide, but due to technology, so I'm using the lecturer site. So your head of lecture is Dr. Kosana. So I use a slide from Dr. Kosana, which is what I'm using currently. So this is your brain. Let's recap. Before we move on, let's just recap. I don't want to confuse my students. We said the central nervous system is made up of the brain, the brainstem, and the spinal cord. So to sum this up, as I'm talking to right now, you receive information through your senses. From the senses, the information goes where? They go via the nerves, the neurons, to the spinal cord. Spinal cord information shoots straight to the brain. Then the brain interprets the information. That is this danger. You receive a call, they tell you that you have passed the module. You receive a call that you have applied for a car. Your application for the car is successful. You go to interview, then they call you, they say your interview went well, you've got a job. Through your senses. The information goes through your senses, via your nerves, goes straight to your brain. Your brain tells you to, you interpret the information. The information is happiness, is joy, pleasure. Then you start smiling. That is central nervous system. You receive information, neurons, spinal cord to the brain, you interpret the information. As soon as you start smiling, that they say the information is through motor. You react, your muscles become heavy, you get excited, you jump up. That is central nervous system through the brain, brainstem, and the spinal cord. So they work hand in hand, central nervous system. So let's move on. We have explained it, that the brain is the largest part in your central nervous system. It's the headquarter of your functioning. What does it include? What does the brain include? It includes sensation, perception. Then they say to you the limbic system. What happens in the limbic system? Limbic system is a structure in your brain. What does it regulate? It regulates what? Fear, aggression, hunger, sleep wave cycle, sexual desire, even memory. Which part of the brain regulates memory, hunger, aggression, fear, sleep, sexual desire? These are the structures. Hippocampus, amalgama, the thalamus, in solar context with the singular context as well as prefrontal context. That is limbic system. Then beside limbic system, they highlight certain important structures in the brain. You see the difference. The limbic system, they didn't explain much in detail. You don't know what does amalgama do. You don't know what thalamus do. You don't know what hippocampus does. However, there are functions here. But the most important structure of the brain, they did explain. Like the cerebrum, they did explain what the function of the cerebellum. They say it is situated at the back of the brain, like the brainstem. It coordinates the actions without need for any conscious awareness. They continue explaining the cerebrum. They say it's regarded as the most advanced portion of the brain. They tell you that there's a gray matter as well as a white matter. White matter are myelin axon, as well as gray matter sensory. You see, they explain it in detail compared to this one. Meaning, make sure that when you study, you know the functions of these structures. Corpus callosum connects the two hemispheres. The brain has two hemispheres. So the lecture have done this purposefully in order to show you what is the most important and what is likely important. Then moving on, beside the two halves of the brain, the left side and the right hand side, we have this structure. This structure we have frontal lobe, precentral, iras central, silas, postcentral, iras parental lobe, occipital lobe, cerebellum, temporary lobe, as well as these two, that is syllabia, fissure, as well as olfactory. Let's see the functions here. In the multiple choice, we won't say to you, we won't give you a structure and say label the structure. We won't do that. Remember, you're doing multiple choice. We can't ask you to label the structure. University level, normally we ask for the functions, not to label. They say frontal lobe. Frontal lobe controls the front part of the frontal lobe controls important cognitive functions such as processing information relating to the language, decision making, and problem solving. The frontal lobe control important cognitive function. What is the function of the frontal lobe? Frontal lobe controls what? Cognitive function. By cognitive, we mean thinking. Reasoning is part of your cognitive. You can write on top what you mean. It's the thinking part, the reasoning part. Frontal lobe controls important cognitive functions such as processing information. I'm talking to right now, the information, you're trying to make sense of the information, you're trying to make sense. You are coordinating. Perhaps you're opening your book, you're opening your study material, you're trying to make sense. That is through frontal lobe. Processing information, language, memory, decision making, and problem solving is through what? Your frontal lobe. Then you have what? Parietal lobe. Parietal lobe is primarily responsible for the whole body receiving inputs from the skin and muscle. I touch you or I hit you. Parietal lobe is responsible. I pinch you. Parietal lobe is responsible. You go outside, you realize that no, it's too hot or it's too cold. You detect through your skin. That is parietal lobe is responsible. This means that a touch on the skin activates the parietal lobe in the central nervous system. Then you have what? Occipital lobe. Occipital lobe contains the primary visual cortex that is responsible for your vision. you are able to see the slide right now. You are able to see the colors, the brain, the mouse moving. Is through what? Occipital lobe. Occipital lobe is for seeing. You're seeing what? Images. Image received in the retina. Retina is your black part on your eye. Your eye is white and black. Then there's the retina there. To determine the images. Image received in the retina, the cell layer at the back of the cell layer in the back of your eye containing photoreceptor activates this lobe. Retina is a cell layer in the back of your eye containing photoreceptor. So in short, let me not confuse you. In short, what is the function of frontal lobe? The function of frontal lobe is for thinking and reasoning. How do you think and reasoning? Through what is called, you process information. You process language, memory, decision making, and problem solving. That is frontal lobe, the thinking and reasoning part of the brain. Then you have parietal lobe. Parietal lobe determines what? Determines touch. Determines touch. How I touch you right now. Parietal lobe determines that. It regulates that through skin and muscles. Then you have occipital lobe. Occipital lobe is for seeing. Determines your vision. What you see and what you don't see. Determines what? Vision. Vision, whether it's color or it's light. Then the last one is temporal lobe. The temporal lobe determines what? Hearing and smell. Hearing and smell. This means that auditory and smell. As I'm talking to you right now, you are receiving information through temporal lobe. This means that the auditory and smell sensation are activated through temporal lobe. Then they say to you, for further information on the functions of the different lobes, you can use this link. So feel free to use this link for further information. Then let's go further. If you cut the cerebral cortex in the middle, a new set of structure comes into play. Remember, we said you have left and the right hemisphere. Your brain is divided into left and right hemisphere. That's what you said. If you cut central hemisphere in the middle, a new set of structure come into view. That's figure 1.5. Let's check figure 1.5. This is figure 1.5. If you cut our hemisphere into half, this is what you see. Let's go back. This structure performs different functions vital to our being. There are different functions. Brain on its own has its function. But how does the brain function? Does not function independently. There are structures in the brain that makes you function sense of information. This structure performs different functions vital to our body. For example, the limbic system contains the number of nucleus that processes memory. What processes memory? Hippocampus. Then you highlight. What determines memory or controls memory? Phonics. It's in your attention and emotions that are coordinated by what? Singular eras. Then you have globus pallidus. Globus pallidus is involved with motor and these are mostly neural. Then we have what? Hypothalamus and the thalamus. Hypothalamus and thalamus involved with motivation and tracking sensory motor. So you need to highlight these parts. So hippocampus regulates what? Memory. What does then cingulate regulates what? Attention and emotions. Then globus pallidus involves in what? motor movement and their coordination. Then the last two, hypothalamus and thalamus, they're involved in what? Involving drives, motivation, trafficking sensory, and motor throughput. The hypothalamus also plays a key role in regulating what? Endocrine hormones in conjunction with the pituitary glands. So just use highlights to make sure you understand this. As much as I can talk about them, speak about them, you need to have a way of remembering them to make things much simpler for you. So these are those parts. Amal gaga, the small layer, the small tiny blue hippocampus, mammary body. Because it's multiple choice, normally the lecturers, the examiners choose which parts we include this year, which part we include in the assignment, which one we eliminate. So it's much easier to set a question, but it's much difficult to memorize everything for you to remember. As we descend the thalamus, the midbrain comes into view with superior and inferior collicus, which processes visual and auditory. You see, like I've said, for you to remember this part of the brain, you need to be able to highlight them, break them down, because they are straightforward. Straightforward, what do I mean? The superior and inferior collicus regulate what? Visual and auditory information. What else regulates visual and information is occipital lobe. Some functions are similar, some functions differ. So make sure that when you study, you highlight the functions that are similar, functions that are not similar. Like we said, we mentioned here, occipital lobe determines what? Your vision. You see, they also mention here, they say, superior and inferior collicus, which process vision, see, it's the same. And auditory information. Auditory information, know that auditory information is also determined by temporal lobe. So make sure when you study, you check things that are similar, you check things that are different. That's how we trick you in multiple choice questions. Okay, let's move on. What is important here? I won't be able to read everything. I'll just break it down for you to make sense of it. The reticular formation regulates arousal of sleep. Reticular information, arousal of sleep. Descending a little. What is important here? Okay, let's keep this and go straight to the key functions. These are the brain functions. We're going through the brain. So when you study the brain, make sure that you cover limbic system. Make sure that you cover cerebellum, cerebrum. Know the functions of corpus callosum, that the brain has two hemispheres. The lobes, we have 4 lobes: frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and temporal lobe. Which takes us straight to what? The brainstem and the spinal cord. The brainstem is located at the top of the spine as well as at the bottom of the brain. It's located where? At the top of the spine and the brain. Let's check it. What do they mean by at the top of the spine? This is the brainstem. This is your brain. This is your spinal cord. You see, brainstem acts as a connection between the brain and the spinal cord. Spinal cord, then in the middle, the brain. It acts as a connection. It's a bridge. It acts as a bridge between the spinal cord and the brain. That's the brainstem. The brainstem is located on the top of the spine as well as the bottom of the brain. It oversees the wide range of very basic life support functions for the body, which include breathing, digestion, and heartbeats. The brainstem sends the signal to keep these processes running smoothly without any conscious effort. Let's repeat: the brainstem, we know that is located at the top of the spine and the bottom of the spinal cord. To highlight that, the function, the main function of the brainstem, it's a short function compared to the brain. Brain is too detailed. This one is short. They say it oversees the wide range of very basic life support functions for the body, including breathing, regulates breathing, digestion, and the heartbeat. In short, once your brainstem can be affected, if your brainstem can be disabled, chances are you die instantly. Because it regulates, they say life support. By life support, meaning it regulates your survival. You normally see in movies, especially Chinese movies, action movies, they use a gun to hit you at the back of your neck, meaning they are hitting what? The brainstem. So it's a demonstration that want to hit someone at the back of the neck, between the brain and the neck. Normally they hit with a gun or a hard object. Suddenly the person collapses. That is brainstem. So it's a demonstration that at the back of your brain is a sensitive part of the brain. If I hit you hard, chances will collapse. If I hit you harder, you might die. You might even die instantly. So that is your life support. It's a basic life support. It regulates what your breathing, digestion, and your heart rate. The brainstem sends a signal to keep this process running smoothly without any conscious effort. See, without any conscious effort, meaning you can't even determine it, you can't control it. It's the most important part of the brain. Without any conscious effort. Then we have what? The spinal cord. The spinal cord connects the brain and the brainstem to all the major nerves in the body. Therefore, the spinal cord acts as a bridge to transport information. I touch you, the information goes via the spinal cord. So it acts as a bridge to connect what? The brain and the brainstem. Spinal nerves. The question is, because the spinal cord is a bone, how does the information move from the brain to the spinal cord? Because the spinal cord is just a bone. Does the information move through the bone? You ask yourself, does the information move through the bone? No, it does not move through the bone. I made an example of what? Of an electric pole. For you to get lights on the street, electric pole, there are wires within the pole. There are wires connected from the ground. They move through inside the pole, then you get the lights. Those wires, we call them spinal nerves. So in humans, those are spinal nerves. Spinal nerves originate from the spinal cord and control the functions of the rest of the body. So without nerves, you won't be able to process information. So nerve function, you see something, is through the nerves. You hear something, is moved. You feel touch, is through the nerves. They say spinal nerves originates from the spinal cord, controls the function of the body. We have the spinal cord as the bone. This is your spinal cord. Around the spinal cord, there are wires, the nerves. I say wires in order to make sense, but they are nerves basically, neurons. Nerves around the spinal cord to transport information. Spinal cord is just a bone. Around it, there are nerves, which make sure that information moves through the brain via the brainstem. I'm trying to be practical as much as possible. The spinal nerves originates from the spinal cord, controls the function of the rest of the body. Impulses are sent from the receptor through the spinal cord to the brain, where they are processed and synthesized into the instructions from the rest of the body. This data is then sent back through the spinal cord to muscle and the glands for functioning. So you see, it's clear. You receive information from your sensory. The information from the sensory goes to your spinal cord. From the spinal cord goes to the brain. The brain interprets the information that the snake is dangerous. Now I need to run away. From the brain, it goes back via the spinal cord for you to act. From the spinal cord for you to act. How do you act? either you run away or you beat up the snake. So that's the reaction. It's vice versa. You receive information through the sensory. Sensory goes through your nerve, spinal nerves through the spinal cord. Spinal cord goes straight to the brain. Then the information now needs to go back. You have interpreted the information. You see the snake, your mind says this is danger. Motor neurons take the information back to the spinal cord. Then you what? You react. How do you react? It depends how you react. I hope this is clear. So let me go back to question. You have functions of the brain as well as impulse conduction in the neuron. Human nervous system 1.2 structures and function. Structures and function, mostly the physical aspects of your brain. That is your brain, your brainstem, as well as what organs. So the structure, the function. So those are the key structures of your brain. And they say impulse conduction in the neuron, the movement. I've mentioned spinal nerves, I've mentioned neurons. Now they are going deep. What do they mean by neurons? How does this function? How do they move? So, but before we continue, again, I don't want to confuse you. Does the information make sense? Let's check what you are left with. Impulse conduction in the neuron, action potential, the soma. Yes, we'll do these ones next week. If I continue, I will confuse you much. I'll confuse you. Instead, what you can do, I can take questions and redo what I've done to make sure that you understand. I can repeat this instead of starting a new topic. Human nervous system, I'll divide into two: structures and function. Function, that is your brain and nervous system. Then next week we will focus mainly on what? On neurons. But before I redo it, I would like to take questions from you. I believe you have done with your first assignment. Some of you have received feedback, some of you haven't yet received feedback. Let me check if I can connect. So as soon as you open your MyUnisa, you'll find tutorial letter 101. Tutorial letter 101 is a breakdown. It's a breakdown of the module. First, for this module, there's no picture. Back in the days we had a prescribed book, but now we don't have a prescribed book. Instead, they will tell you that you can use a prescribed book as a recommended information, but not a prescribed. So don't panic and say, "Sir, we don't have a prescribed book. What do we use?" You focus on your notes. These study units are important for you to pass your module. You just focus on your study units. If you feel like you need additional information, that's when you can use a recommended book. Where do you find it? Under 101 tutorial letter. You have two assignments. First two assignments are compulsory for you to qualify for the exam. You need to write those two assignments for you to qualify for the exam. Then you'll see in each tutorial letter or online, they've indicated that we also have assignment 91 and assignment what? 92. Assignment 91 and assignment 92. So assignment 91 and 92 is for your revision purposes. There's no need to submit those two assignments. Assignment 91 and assignment number 2 is for revision purposes. The most important, assignment 1 and assignment 2. So those are the keys, and everything is done online. So don't get confused. So before we close the class, let me go back and just repeat some information. Our classes, we're going to have these classes every Saturday, 8 o'clock. Make sure that you go online. every Saturday from 8 to 10 o'clock is PYC 1501. Then later at 10:30 we'll do PYC 1502. Without wasting time, I know some students log in late. Let me just refresh. So let's just refresh, then we close the class. I said unit one is human nervous system. Human nervous system, we're going to break it down into two aspects. They say understanding the two important parts of neurons and their functions. This is what we're doing today. The central nervous system in relation to its functions. That is brain and its functions. Let's say understanding how the components of nervous system fit together, understanding the process of impulse conduction. This will do next week. Explaining the interconnection of neurons in the brain. Again, we do it next week. Today we are focusing on what? These two aspects, so that we won't get confused. Then they say introduction. Introduction, the human nervous system is an important aspect of human functions and is responsible for all human functions. Like I said, human nervous system is a core of the human being. It determines all forms of behavior. By all forms of behavior, now I'm talking, meaning I'm behaving. I'm using my hands. I breathe. Heart rate is calming. My lungs are moving. So all forms of human beings. Comparison of different animals. Then I said to you why they keep on using animals. During research, it's unethical to use someone's body. So you don't use as psychologist or physician, people who operate. Normally they use animals to demonstrate some aspects. You go to a university where they study medicine. For students to learn how to operate a person, they use an animal, not a person. They use a rat, they use a frog to operate flies, different animals. This learning session outlines different aspects of human nervous system and how they coordinate together to produce human behavior. This session covers the process of impulse conduction in the neuron and the structure of nervous system. So this is the structure nervous system. Number one, when we say the structure and function, we are talking about the peripheral nervous system, PNS, as well as the central nervous system. They function differently. These two aspects, they function differently. Peripheral nervous system is divided into two. We have what? Somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. What is somatic nervous system? Okay, let's start here. They say the peripheral nervous system carries signals necessary for the body to survive, and some of the signals are related to voluntary action. See, there are voluntary action and involuntary action. Let me repeat. Voluntary action is whereby currently you are sitting attending a class, your stomach grumbles. It says what you are hungry. That is involuntary. You can't control that. Your stomach makes some noise. It tells you that you are hungry. You are sitting right now. There's a need to go to the toilet. You feel like you're going to the toilet to pee. It's internally. You can't control it. It's involuntary. Then involuntary action will be as soon as you decide to stand up and go to the toilet. That is involuntary, because you decide whether to pee at yourself or to go to the toilet, meaning it's involuntary action. You decide whether to use the close by toilet or use your the outside yard, meaning those actions are voluntary. You choose where to pee. You are hungry. As soon as you stand up and decide, no, I want to eat bread. No, I don't want bread. I want pap. Let me switch on the microwave. Those are voluntary action. So peripheral nervous system carries the signal, the signal necessary for the body to survive. Some of the signals, they say some of the signals are related to voluntary, but most of the signals are what? Are involuntary. So they play around with, but the key here is voluntary action. The peripheral nervous system is divided into somatic and autonomic nervous system. Let's see the difference between the two. They say somatic nervous system, voluntary actions. You see? Somatic nervous system is mainly conscious and voluntary. You highlight that. Mainly conscious and voluntary. It is involved in the relay of sensory and motor information to and from the central nervous system. Therefore, it consists of motor neuron and sensory neuron. Then I did mention to you that sensory is whereby you receive information. You see, how do you receive information? How you see, meaning is determined through you see the slides. You can see that I'm moving my mouse. It's through what? You see the information through sensory. That's a vision. You can hear sound waves as I'm talking. It's auditory. You can hear through your ears. It's determined by sensory. The sensory receives that. As soon as it receives that information, it takes the information straight to what? To the spinal, the central nervous system. You know that central nervous system is brainstem, and the spinal cord. It takes the information to the central nervous system. By the nerves, it goes to the spinal cord. From spinal cord, it goes to the brain. That's the central nervous system. Through what the process? Afferent neuron. The process afferent neuron. Then from the central nervous system, from the brain, the information is interpreted. It goes back. It goes back through what? Motor neuron. Where is motor? The motor neuron that carries the information from the brain spinal cord to the muscles. That's where you react. That's where you act. In short, then autonomic nervous system, which is the vast of the involuntary functions. Involuntary things that you cannot control, they're beyond your control. Moving your lungs, your heart rate, you cannot control. Sweating, you cannot control the sweating. I want to sweat hard, unless you can wake up in the morning and decide to take a jog, or you are running. You sweat ever. You don't determine your sweating automatically. That is autonomic nervous. It's come from automatic, something that you cannot control. It's involuntary movement. How does it happen? Autonomic nervous system. How does it happen? How does it function? We have sympathetic and parasympathetic. They work vice versa. Sympathetic is whereby you react to something. Someone is angering you. Someone is frustrating you. That form of frustration, you become angry, you start sweating, heart rate goes high. That is sympathetic. It's sympathetic. So normally sympathetic is a reaction process whereby your body becomes stressed. Then they make an example of a snake. That you see a snake, your body reacts. Examinations are coming, you start to panic because the examinations are coming. I need to study. Meaning, sympathetic takes into play. So most of the time, sympathetic has to do with fear, panic. It's not just fear, panic. You are getting news that are exciting. You have passed the interview. You get excited. That is it happens through sympathetic. That process where tears of joy. That is sympathetic. Then suddenly or later, you are used now to the feeling. The body reacts differently. You parasympathetic, meaning para. You can say paralyzing. Para, you come down. When you paralyzing something, meaning it reacts differently. You calmly. You parasympathetic is a vice versa. Whereby the body the body restores. The routine day-to-day operation, you come down. That's the difference. Here your heart rate was high, your glands were high, sweating was high, breathing rate was high. Here breathing rate becomes calm. Your breathing rate is normal, your heart rate is normal, sweating is normal. that is parasympathetic, is an opposite of this. Hence they say it's determined by the body temperature. When your state of equilibrium becomes normal. I'm summarizing now. Then you have what? We are done with peripheral nervous system. Then you move to central nervous system. The central nervous system, this is made up of the brain, brainstem, and the spinal cord. These are the key functions in your body. How does it happen? Central nervous system, this is a process. You hear, you visualize, you interpret something, you run, you cry, you sing, you sleep. All these functions are determined by central nervous system. These are the key. When they say central, it's a central part of your body. It is a central, it is referred to as central because it is the brain and the spinal cord that are primarily responsible for processing sensory information. So without your brain, without spinal cord, you die instantly. Without spinal cord, it's difficult for you to process information. You become lucky if you sit on the wheelchair. You become your certain part of your body become paralyzed. Some people die instantly because these are the central parts of your body functioning. If you shoot someone in the brain, the person dies instantly because all the functions are disabled instantly. That's the central nervous system. Then they say the brain. The brain is the largest organ in your body. It is the largest part of central nervous system. The brain is the headquarters of the entire neural system. It's the headquarters of the entire neural system. What does the brain determine? The brain determines what? Sensation, perception, thinking, awareness, emotion, and planning. Then the limbic system. The limbic system, as part of the brain, consists of highly specialized neural structure that are located on the top of the brainstem. Your brain determines what sensory, perception, thinking, awareness. So those are the key. Under the brain, we have a structure called what? Limbic system. That's how you need to study it. Inside the brain, we have what? Limbic system. The function of limbic system, what does it do? Determines what? Fear, aggression, and hunger. You sleep wave. You sleep wave. I want to sleep now. I'm drowsy. I wake up. It's determined through limbic system, your sexual desire, and also memory. These are the responsible structures of the brain that determines fear. That is hippocampus, amygdala, the thalamus, insular cortex, as well as anterior cortex and prefrontal cortex. They are part of the limbic system. However, the most part that they emphasize in psychology, the most that are important in terms of their functions are cerebellum. The cerebellum, some they call it a small brain, which is situated at the back of the brain, like the brainstem. They say its function is it coordinates actions without the need for any conscious awareness. Cerebellum, involved in cerebral cortex, regulates what? The most advanced portion of the brain. So the most advanced portion of the brain, we have what? Central cell body, as well as myelinated axon. The cell bodies are gray, whereas the myelinated axon, which are inside, are white. Then you need to know that your brain is divided into two hemispheres. We have the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. They communicate with one another. The function of the brain. They say it's two hubs. Oversee the type of processes that are associated with more awareness, voluntary, speaking, and planning. Then the question is, since the brain is divided into two, what holds the two hemispheres together? What holds the two hemispheres together is corpus callosum. They hold the two hemispheres together. This is your they hold the two hemispheres together. They say a rest split brain patient offer helpful insight into how the brain works. For example, we now understand the brain's collateral. Like I've said, what do they mean by the brain's collateral? The brain's collateral because the left-hand side of the brain controls the right-hand side of your body, whereas the right-hand side of your brain controls the left-hand side of your body. Imagine a pen when it works. Imagine the pen when it works left, right. Even as when we work, we use 1 foot goes up. When one leg goes up, the other one steps down. So they balance one another. You can't use 2 feet. You can't lift 2 feet up at the same time unless you are jumping. But when you walk, left, right. So the brain supports the balance. When the brain goes on to the left, the legs, the right hand side of your body, it reacts. When the body, your left hand side when you move your head, your brain to the right hand side, the left hand side of your body reacts. That is correlated movement. Then the key aspect of the brain are these ones: frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and temporal lobe. Frontal lobe determines what? Your thinking process, that cognitive functions, thinking and reasoning. Frontal lobe determines your thinking and reasoning. What do you mean by thinking and reasoning? Language, memory, decision making, and problem solving. Then parietal lobe determines what? Touch. What is touch? What do you touch? You mostly touch the skin. When I touch you, meaning I touch the skin. The outside layer of your body is the skin. Then muscles react. Occipital lobe determines what? Vision, what you see. Occipital lobe determines what? Vision, what you see. Images, color, the light, whether it's too much light, less light. That is through occipital lobe. Then temporal lobe, which is the last one, determines hearing. Temporal lobe determining that. Smell, as well as the smell, is regulated by what? Your temporal lobe. Here they give us the functions of the, and they go back to the functions. The key function hippocampus determines what? Memory. Emotions are determined by what? In attention, singular task. Then you have what? Which is coordinates movement and coordination. Motor movement and motor coordination determined by what? Lobes, pallidus. So these are the key structures that you need to know before we move further to the next chapter. We have hypothalamus and thalamus, which determine drive, motivation, trafficking, sensory and motor inputs. Another function of hippocampi, the key function of hypothalamus, is that it plays a key role in regulating endocrine hormones in conjunction with pituitary glands that extends from hypothalamus. So you know this function because multiple choice question that is suitable for that particular. So study further because I cannot cover them all. Even if I cover them all, it's for you to study to make sure that you remember them. Then you have the brainstem and the spinal cord. The brainstem is short, straight to the point. The brainstem is located on the top of the spine as well as the bottom of the brain. It regulates the brain and the spinal cord. It oversees the wide range of the basic life supports. Where's the brainstem? This is your brainstem. There's the brain and the spinal cord. It's here. It acts as a connection between the brain and the spinal cord. They say life support, meaning if your brainstem won't be able to breathe, you won't be able to digest food, heart rate, you can die instantly. I made an example. Normally in movies, they hit someone at the back of the brain, at the back of between the neck and the brain just to demonstrate that this is a sensitive part of the brain. The person collapses instantly. The brainstem sends signal to keep this process running smoothly. Then you have the spinal cord. Spinal cord transports the information from the spinal cord to the brain. So without the spinal cord, if I can remove the spinal cord now, there won't be connection. Still, you die instantly. How can the information be processed? How will you able to know that you're hungry, you are sick? Without spinal cord, you can't. However, the spinal cord is just a bone. The spinal cord is just what? It's just a bone vertebra. It's just a bone structure, like a pole, electric pole. For it to function effectively, it needs neurons. For the spinal cord to function effectively, you need nerves. Nerve fissure are rotated or move straight within the spinal cord. Spinal cord is a bone. Around the spinal cord, you have spinal nerves. Spinal nerves are the ones who transport information up and down, up and down. Those are the spinal nerves. So that's it for today. For the body to react. Okay, guys, that's it for today. But before we move, any questions, any elaborations to determine if you do understand the content? I hope the class was fruitful. We started in a bad mood, but I'm sure that I've covered, I didn't waste your time, I've covered most of the key aspects that you had question on. Next week, we continue with impulse conduction. I cannot do everything on a day. Can open your mics, guys, and have your input. Did the class, did I meet your expectations? Does the information make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks very much, Madira.
Yes, it does make sense.
Oh, thanks very much. So, two
Yes.
is enough. Avela, I'm listening. Okay, guys, thanks very much for attending PYC 1501. So every Saturday, 8 o'clock, you go online. You'll find me waiting for you.